So today we are going to learn about what is chromatography. What exactly does chromatography means? Chromatography is a separation of mixture by passing it in a solution at a suspension through which they move at a different rate. Exactly what does it mean by column chromatography? Column chromatography is a technique used in the small scale as well as the large scale to purify the material that can be used in the future experiment. The method is a type of absorptive chromatography method. What exactly does column chromatography in an absorptive method means? Column chromatography is a technique used to separate the component of a mixture using a column of suitable absorbent packed in a glass tube. Okay, the mixture is placed in the top of the column. So we have to take a column and the mixture is placed at the top of the column and the appropriate amount of it is passed through the column. Depending upon the degree of absorption, the degree of absorption, what exactly does the degree of absorption means? The degree of absorption means the amount of the substance or the amount of solute that is going to pass through the column depending upon its absorptive power. Yes, absorptive power. The component of the well absorbed solution, the separation of the component takes place. As the separation of the component takes place, the higher absorptive part is written at the top. The higher absorptive part is written at the top. So what does it mean by higher absorptive part? The, the absorption of which solute is done the most is, is at the top, is at the top of the column, while the other flow down accordingly, and the material which is not absorbed accordingly flows down and down and down in the column. So this is what does column chromatography means.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Siddhi Patel, and now we are discuss about column chromatography procedure. Before starting with the column chromatography experiment, let us understand the different phases that involve in column chromatography. First phase is mobile phase, and second one is stationary phase. Mobile phase is made up of solvent, and it performs as a following function that I describe in slide, and I also explain here. First one, it is act as a solvent. Simple mixture can be introduced in a column. Second one, it also act as a developing agent that help in separation of components in this sample to form bands, and it also act as a eluting agent. The components that are separated during the experiment are removed from the column, and it act and some example of solvent which is used in mobile phase based on their polarity, that are ethanol, acetone, water, acetic acid, pyridine, etc. In column chromatography procedure, second phase is a stationary phase. After we discuss about mobile phase, let us understand the stationary phase. It is solid material which should have good absorption property and meet the conditions given below. First condition is the shape and size. Shape and size of particle. Particles should have uniform shape and size in the range of 60 to 200 micro in diameter. Stability and inertness of particles. High mechanical stability and chemically inert. Also, no reaction with acid or base or any other solvent used during the experiment. And it should be colorless. It should be colorless, expensive, and readily available, and should it should allow to free flow of mobile phase, and it should be suitable for the separation of mixture of various compounds. Next topic is column chromatography principle. This simple mixture is set on the top of column and made to absorb on the top of the stationary phase. Eventually, the mobile phase, which is applied to column, in use to remove mixture via the stationary phase. Separation of compound in column chromatography by utilizing the molecule's polarity. The rate at which molecule move into column during the separation process depends on their polarity. As mobile phase comes out of the column, it is collected in a small fraction in the test tube. That then it is allowed to isolate and purify. Later removal of salt it done by rotary evaporate to obtain the separate compound. Column chromatography is most widely used techniques used for purification of compounds due to its versatility, and also it is very convenient to process. When the mobile phase along with the mixture that needs to be separated in introduced from the top of the column, the movement, as I said while ago, the that needs to be separated in introduced from the top of the column, the movement of the individual compound of the mixture is at different rates. The component with lower absorption and affinity to stationary phase travel faster when compared to the greater absorption and affinity with the stationary phase. The component that move fast are removed first, whereas the component that move slowly are eluted out last, and the absorption of solute molecules to the column occur in reversible manner. The rate of movement of component is expressed as RF. It is known as retardation factor, and retardation factor RF is equals to the distance traveled by solute divided by the distance traveled by the solvent.
So now we are going to discuss about the experiment of an column chromatography. The stationary phase is made wet with the help of a solvent as upper level of mobile phase or stationary phase should match. The mobile phase or eluent is either solvent or mixture of solvents. In the first step, compound mixture that needs to be separated is added from the top of the column without distributing the top level. The tap is turned on and the adsorption process on the surface of a silica beings. Without distributing, the stationary phase or solvent mixture is added slowly by touching the slide of a glass column. The solvent is added throughout the experiment as per the requirement. The tap is initiated the movement of a compound in the mixture. The movement is based on a polarity of a molecule in the sample. The non-molar components move at a greater speed when compared to polar components. For example, a compound mixture consists of three different compounds via red, blue or green. Then their order based on a polarity will be as follows: blue is greater than red is greater than green. As the polarity of a green compound is less, it will move first. When it arrives at the end of a column, it is collected in a clean test tube. After this the red compound is collected and the last blue compound is collected. All this collected separated into test tube. So here we are going to discuss about types of column chromatography. There are four types of column chromatography. First, adsorption column chromatography. Second, partition column chromatography. Third, gel column chromatography. And fourth, ion exchange column chromatography. So in adsorption chromatography is a technique of a separation in which the components of the mixture are absorbed on the surface of an absorbent. And second, partition column chromatography. The stationary phase as well as a mobile phase are liquid in the partition chromatography. Third, gel chromatography. In this method chromatography, the separation takes place through the packed with gel. The stationary phase is solvent held in the gap of solvent. Fourth, ion exchange column chromatography. So a chromatography technique in which stationary phase is always ion exchange resin.
Advantage of column chromatography. This process can be fully automated, which is done by big laboratories. No limit for quantity as any amount of mixture can be separated by these techniques. All the different kinds of complex mixture can be separated by column chromatography. Wider choice in mobile phase automation is possible. Disadvantage of column chromatography: it is a lengthy and time consuming process. If the process is automated, then the process becomes costly. It has low power segregation. The process is expensive in comparison to the thin paper column chromatography process, and more amount of mobile phase are required. Summary of column chromatography. Column chromatography is a chromatography techniques used to separate chemical substance of a mixture into individual components. This separation method consists of two phases, with contiguous stationary phase and mobile phase. The column is prepared by mixing the silica and a suitable solvent. It is later poured into a column made of glass. Column chromatography is a reliable preparative technique. The mobile phase is moved along with a compound mixture through the column based on the polarity.